The show starts with a sloppy doctor performing surgery on an operating table. She hesitates and struggles to choose between the 4 drugs labeled A, B, C, and D. The scene then shifts to a classroom where we meet our female protagonist, Juan. She's a medical student who is currently taking her orthopedics exam. Turns out she was just daydreaming rather than focusing on her exam. Because of this, she wastes a lot of time and has to guess the remaining questions before submitting her paper. After finishing the exam, Juan realizes that she needs to make a cake and rushes out of the room. She's the founder of the bakery club at the university, where she's also the sole member. Outside, she meets her friend Jianshin, tonight's birthday boy. He reminds her not to arrive late to the party because he has something important to announce. Juan gets excited and thinks he's going to confess his feelings for her. She's had a crush on him for 5 years, but has never told him. Meanwhile, at the university pool, we see a man named Renchu coaching the swimming team. Following the training session, he rushes to the school auditorium to give a speech to the freshmen. Turns out he's not only the swimming club's president, but also the top student in the maths department. Later, Renchu is cycling in a hurry when he almost collides with Juan, who is carrying a cake. She immediately apologizes for getting in his way, and they exchange introductions. In the evening, Juan arrives at Jianshin's party with a cake, only to find him drunk and depressed. He claims that he has a secret in his heart and must tell her. He then admits that he's been dating her friend Yumi for 2 years. Jianshin apologizes for not telling her sooner and claims Yumi stopped him from doing so. He adds that he finally decided to come clean because he and Yumi got into a big fight. Hearing this, Juan is devastated because she was the one who introduced them, and Yumi was aware of her crush. But despite the heartbreak, she pretends to be happy and assures Jianshin that she's not angry with him. After he leaves, Juan can't hold back her tears anymore and breaks down. Her roommate Chao soon arrives and finds her drunk and crying. Juan starts to feel sick, so Chao takes her to the restroom to vomit. Our heroine then tells her everything that happened while continuing to cry. Chao suggests that she date a more attractive man to prove that she's not miserable. Hearing this, Juan suddenly thinks of Ren Chu, also known as their college king. She then screams that she intends to pursue him and make him hers. Right at that moment, a group of college boys, including Ren Chu, walk in and listen to her in shock. It's then revealed that the girls had accidentally entered the men's restroom. When Juan wakes up the next morning, she's surrounded by a group of girls who wonder why she's interested in their senior Ren Chu. Turns out the entire college has learned about what happened last night, so she decides to clarify the misunderstanding and goes to see him. She then notices Ren Chu lying motionless in the pool and assumes he's drowning. Juan then tries to save him, but ends up drowning herself. In the end, Ren Chu has to rescue her and get them both out of the water. Afterward, he asks her what she's doing there, and Juan tells him about the rumors. She makes it clear that she's not interested in him and that she was just intoxicated the night before. Ren Chu appears disappointed, but says it's fine. He advises her to take a shower because she's all wet. Juan then showers and leaves in Ren Chu's clothes. They then walk around the college in matching clothes, causing everyone to gossip about them. In the next scene, Juan is in her class when Ren Chu unexpectedly sits nearby. Despite being a top student, it turns out that he's terrible at social practice and scores poorly in this subject. Because he can't accept failure, he's now retaking the class. Juan becomes uneasy upon seeing him, but he continues to smile at her. The other students notice this and begin to suspect that he's there for Juan. She becomes so embarrassed that she rushes out of the room before the class ends. Later in the afternoon, Renchu goes to the fruit market, which turns out to be owned by Juan's parents. He runs into her again and asks for her help to improve his social skills, which are affecting his grades. Juan tries to refuse him, but just then, Jiashin shows up at the store. To make up for leaving her alone on his birthday, he invites her to have dinner with him and Yumi. Juan declines, but Renchu sees this as a good opportunity to socialize and accepts on her behalf. Later, the four of them have dinner together and Jiashin formally apologizes to Juan for hiding their affair. She graciously accepts the apology and congratulates them on their relationship. However, Yumi is so embarrassed that she can't even look Juan in the eye. To break the ice, Jiashin asks if she and Renchu are dating. Our hero quickly affirms, but Juan clarifies that they're just friends. While leaving the restaurant, she notices how sweetly Jiashin takes care of Yumi. This upsets her a lot, and Renchu notices. So he ends up carrying her away from the scene. He then says that if it's too painful, she should stop looking. Meanwhile, Jiashin and Yumi are surprised to see them so close. The next morning at college, Juan discovers that rumors are circulating that she was on a date with Renchu last night. Annoyed, she goes to meet with him and has him sign a document affirming that they're not a couple. She claims that she's sick of hearing rumors about her, but Renchu doesn't seem to care about what others say and refuses to sign the document. Later during anatomy class, Renchu, Juan, and Jiaxin are assigned to a group. Seeing this, the students start gossiping about how awkward it was to be assigned to her ex and current boyfriend. The teacher then asks Juan a question, but she's unable to respond due to nervousness. So Jiaxin takes the initiative and responds on her behalf. The teacher then asks her a second question, but Juan is still nervous. Fortunately, Renchu steps in and diverts the teacher's attention with a silly joke. Later, he finds Juan pouting outside and tries to comfort her. To lift her spirits, they decide to go shopping at the supermarket. Juan spots a sofa that she really likes, but it's beyond her budget. While browsing, Renchu asks her why she seems so nervous in class. She admits that she only chose to study medicine to be in the same college as Jiaxin. Despite her efforts, she admits that she's not a good student. On top of that, the gossip swirling around her is making her life even more miserable. Hearing this, Renchu feels bad and agrees to sign the document which states they're not a couple. Juan is thrilled and shares a photo of the document on social media. But despite this, the students refuse to believe that they're not dating. They comment that the two are just switching from a public relationship to a secret one. This ends up making Juan even more distressed. The next day, the sofa she admired in the supermarket arrives at her door. Confused, she calls Renchu, who confirms that he bought it for her. He claims that he doesn't want to sit on the floor when he visits her baking club. Our heroine then tries to bring the sofa inside, but she struggles. Moments later, a cute guy named Yu Yang offers to help her, and Juan is completely smitten. In the next scene, Renchu and Juan meet secretly in the baking club to avoid gossip. He believes that the best way to avoid suspicion is for one of them to find a romantic partner. He then hands Juan a file containing information about several boys from their college, all of whom are attractive and academically qualified. Juan opens the file and is shocked to see Renchu's picture there as well. He nervously clarifies that he just wanted to give her some options. After browsing for a while, she comes across the photo of Yu Yang, whom she met earlier. She likes him immediately and asks Renchu for his help in pursuing him. Hearing her choice, Renchu becomes very angry and storms off. But due to his promise, he is now obligated to his sister in pursuing Yu Yang. So he gathers up a bunch of relationship books and also shares some personal experiences. After receiving some romance lessons, Juan goes to Yu Yang and attempts to make him fall in love with her. Unfortunately, she ends up staring at him so intensely that he becomes uncomfortable and leaves. Later, Juan and Renchu devise a new strategy to impress Yu Yang with her pastry skills. She begins baking a cake, and Renchu decides to assist her. While working together, Juan accidentally gets cream on her nose, and he moves forward to clean it. As they get closer, his heart almost explodes with nervousness. Although Renchu doesn't want to admit he's falling for Juan, he still plans to disrupt her pursuit of Yu Yang. The next day, he gives her fashion advice and makes her wear bright, funny clothes. Our heroine innocently wears the dress he recommended and goes to meet her crush. Unfortunately, Yu Yang really doesn't like what she's wearing and claims that she disrupted his video game, causing him to lose. Juan then offers to help and sits down to play on his behalf. Surprisingly, she plays exceptionally well, and the two begin to bond. Afterwards, she meets with Renchu and excitedly shares her progress with her crush. Despite feeling disappointed, he pretends to be happy for her. She then says that she wants to give Yu Yang a cake she made. He objects and claims she should play hard to get, but when she insists, he reluctantly agrees to deliver the cake on her behalf. The next day, Juan and Yu Yang meet again to play games, and during this time, she discovers that he's not received the cake she sent him. This angers Juan, and she confronts Renchu. She asks him about the cake, and he eventually admits that he ate it himself. Pissed, she scolds him, hoping that Renchu will graduate as soon as possible so that she can avoid scandals and focus on pursuing Yu Yang. Juan accuses him of breaking his promise, for which he sincerely apologizes. After she leaves, Renchu reflects on his actions and wonders why he's doing this. Eventually, he has to admit to himself that he's fallen in love with her. For the next few days, Renchu struggles as he finds himself constantly thinking about Juan. Even in his sleep, he dreams about kissing her, which frustrates him deeply. He thinks that falling in love is stupid, and he doesn't want to be stupid. He then meets with a friend who's an expert student in neuroscience. Renchu asks for advice on how to avoid infatuation, and his friend advises him to keep his distance from the girl. He thinks this is a good idea and decides not to see Juan again. However, he soon learns that the members are being selected for pairs for the upcoming club activities. Knowing Juan will be present, he also decides to participate in the club. In the following scene, the students gather for the team division, and Guan, also known as the college queen, appears. She wants to be paired with Renchu, but he doesn't seem to be interested in her. He and Juan are eventually paired together, which makes him very happy. Turns out that he purposely manipulated the outcome to ensure that they were paired. Meanwhile, Juan is disappointed because she was hoping to be with Yu Yang. Afterward, Guan approaches Juan and asks if she and Ren Chu are dating. Our heroine quickly denies it, which appears to relieve Guan. The two then decide to switch partners, and Juan says that she wants to be with Yu Yang. Hearing this, Guan tells her not to worry and promises to handle the situation. The following day, the students gather for a paintball competition, and Ren Chu is excited to play with Juan. But instead of her, Guan shows up and introduces himself as her partner. On the other hand, we see Juan and Yu Yang paired up together. She wants to get close to him, but he only sees her as a friend and concentrates on the game. However, when they have a moment, Ren Chu becomes jealous and does everything to keep them apart. Shortly after, Juan injures her leg and can't continue playing, but despite this, her teammate Yu Yang decides to keep playing to win the competition. Ren Chu then shoots himself to be eliminated from the game in order to join Juan. He then carries her to the infirmary where he treats her wounds. He then remembers his friend saying that the one way to deal with a crush is to completely surrender to it. So, while tending to her wounds, he leans in and gives her a passionate kiss. Initially shocked, Juan melts and falls into his embrace. The next day, Juan avoids Ren Chu because she's unsure how to handle things after their kiss. She gets really nervous whenever he tries to approach her and flees from the scene. In the evening, she has dinner with Yu Yang, who is no longer her love interest, but has become her good friend. She tells him about the kiss with Ren Chu, and he comments that he must be interested in her. However, she's skeptical because Ren Chu kissed her abruptly without confessing his love. The following day, Juan is practicing vein puncher skills alone, and she begins to scream in pain while repeatedly pricking herself. This process is very frustrating for her, so she consults a senior who suggests she recruit volunteers for practice. He explains that pricking herself may have made her nervous, and he recommends trying on others. Juan agrees with the idea, and she posts a sign seeking volunteers. Shortly after, Ren Chu signs up as her volunteer and shows up at her baking club. Juan is reluctant, but she has no choice but to practice on him because no one else is available. During practice, she commits multiple errors and accidentally punctures him multiple times. But our hero is patient throughout the process and asks her not to be nervous. With his encouragement, Juan finally manages to learn vein puncture. The next day during the test, Juan succeeds in vein puncture for the first time, which makes her feel very proud. She believes it's all because of Ren Chu's help and decides to make him a cake in appreciation. After baking the cake, she goes to place it in his locker with a note. However, Ren Chu quickly catches her and asks what she's up to. Juan claims that she bought the cake and claims she wishes to be friends. This disappoints him, but he agrees and asks her to forget about the kiss they had. She then leaves happily, while Ren Chu tells himself that she will eventually come to like him as well. In the next scene, a swim club member named Fanyi approaches Juan and asks for 300 sweets for the swimming team. He mentions that they need to be sugar-free, low-fat, and caffeine-free desserts. She's thrilled to receive such a large order, as she doesn't realize her baking was this popular. Turns out that it was all Ren Chu's idea to support her. However, he felt too awkward to approach her directly, so he ended up sending his friend. After a while, Ren Chu asks the swimming team to leave early so he can be alone. He intends to impress Juan when she arrives by showing off his abs. However, when our heroine arrives with the sweets, she notices the team members taking off their shirts in training. All of them have perfect bodies, leaving her gobsmacked. Comically, this makes Ren Chu jealous, so he covers her eyes and quickly takes her away from the scene. They then arrive in the locker room where Juan hands him the sweets. Ren Chu asks why she was staring at those shirtless guys, and she explains that she is studying human muscles. Hearing this, Ren Chu takes off a shirt and tells her that she can come to him anytime she wants to study muscles. He takes her hand and places it on his body, making her extremely shy. Ren Chu then invites her to watch the swimming competition on Friday, which she accepts. On Friday, she arrives at the swimming competition to cheer for Ren Chu. She runs into Guan, who has also come to support him. Ren Chu smiles at Juan, but Guan thinks he's smiling at her. Shortly after, the competition begins and he ends up kicking everyone's ass. But when he notices Juan, he's disappointed that she's busy on her phone rather than cheering for him. After the competition, Juan and Guan approach Ren Chu and congratulate him on his victory. But our hero is still very annoyed at the fact that Juan was engrossed in her phone. She apologizes and notices that his arm has swollen from her vein puncture practice. She again apologizes and understands that it must have affected his swimming. Hearing this, Guan becomes enraged and begins scolding Juan for practicing on him. However, Ren Chu immediately defends her and tells Guan to mind her own damn business. He then takes Juan away from there, making Guan very jealous. Days later, summer vacation begins. Juan returns home, but despite being on vacation, she doesn't stop studying. One day while she's studying in her parents' store, Joshin suddenly shows up. He notices her struggling with a problem and offers to help. Juan is initially hesitant, but eventually agrees and allows him to help. During this time, she remembers their time in high school when he used to help her with her studies. A little while later, Renchu shows up at the store to buy fruits, and he notices the two together and becomes very jealous and tells Joshin that his teaching methods are ineffective. This offends the latter because he's also a top student. He says that he's been teaching Juan since high school, but Renchu believes this is why she's not making progress. The two men then start arguing, and Juan becomes frustrated by the situation. Eventually, Renchu proposes that he tutor Juan himself to ensure she performs better in her next exam. The boys then make a bet that if Renchu loses, he will give Joshin his annual scholarship. The following day, Yumi unexpectedly shows up to visit Juan. The two awkwardly sit down, and Juan's mother begins serving them food. Soon the girls begin talking, and Yumi apologizes to Juan for dating Joshin without her knowledge and betraying her trust. Juan has also moved on from the incident, so she forgives her friend. In the end, the girls resolve their differences and start laughing together like old times. Shortly after, Renchu and Joshin also show up at the house to tutor Juan. The four of them then sit down together and have breakfast. Yumi questions why Joshin is here, to which he replies that he wants to help Juan with her studies. At this moment, our heroine gestures to her friend to take him away. Yumi obliges and asks if they can go on a date today. Hearing this, Joshin realizes that they're all trying to get him out of here. He finally understands that he's getting worked up for no reason, so he asks Renchu to cancel the bet and shakes hands. Our hero agrees to cancel the bet but refuses to shake hands, further irritating Joshin. After everyone leaves, Renchu stays behind and helps Juan with her studies. Even while she's working at the store, he quizzes her with medical questions, and she impressively answers all of them correctly. He then plays a Hollywood movie with no subtitles so that she can help improve her English. After watching it once, he asks her questions about it, but when she's unable to answer, he repeatedly plays the film. Juan is irritated and tries to take the remote control away from him, but at this point, their faces are unintentionally close, so Juan becomes shy and quickly moves away. Eventually, the holidays are over and Juan returns to the university. On her way, she runs into Renchu and Fanyi. The latter teases her, asking if she thinks Renchu is a good guy and when she officially plans to date him. Juan responds that he's a good candidate, but her primary focus right now is on her studies. Renchu is disappointed hearing this, but he pretends not to care. Afterward, a frustrated Renchu heads to meet his friend and seek advice. His friend suggests that instead of complicating matters, he should just confess his feelings to her. The following day, Juan takes her orthopedics exam, and she scores significantly higher than any other exam. This makes her very happy, as she feels she's finally progressing. Later, Chao discovers that Renchu has scheduled 7 days of extra classes for Juan and suspects he's in love with her. However, our heroine denies it and claims that it's impossible. Later, while she's busy baking, Renchu approaches her and attempts to confess his feelings, but she's in a rush and returns to her dorm and doesn't hear his last words of confession. During Juan's evening class, she learns that one of her classmates has changed her major after struggling with vein puncture. This puts even more pressure on her because she's also insecure about her own grades. The next day, Juan has an exam which she needs to sew artificial skin. However, she fears that she won't meet the requirement standard, so she hands the work to Chao. Later, Renchu finds Juan at the library and tries to confess his feelings again. However, he unexpectedly comes across her application form to change her major. He chastises her for wanting to give up after finally making some progress. Juan claims that top students like himself will not understand the struggles of poor students. She claims he's good at everything, so he could not possibly understand her situation. Renchu responds by saying there are many things he doesn't know, such as baking, which she excels at. Following this, he goes to the lab, and after doing some research, he bakes a rum-filled chocolate ice cream. Later, one of his classmates discovers that Renchu mistakenly used a high-alcoholic drink instead of rum in the dessert. By this time, Renchu is already with Juan, and he asks her to taste the dessert. She's impressed by his efforts and comments that he did well. Moments later, Juan begins to feel jacked up because of the ice cream. She starts to cry and complains about the difficulty of studying. Renchu is taken aback by her behavior and tries to comfort her. Juan then declares that she will not change her major, and that if she does, she will improve her grades before quitting. Renchu sees this as an ideal opportunity to share his feelings, but he becomes too scared and ends up telling her that he wants to be her private tutor. The next morning, Juan wakes up in her dorm room, clutching Chao's shirt. Turns out she was having an erotic dream about him in which she tore off his shirt. After regaining her composure, Chow informs her that she returned to the dorm drunk last night and caused a scene. Hearing this, Won worries that she may have acted inappropriately towards Renchu. Shortly after, she receives a text message from Renchu inviting her to the lab. This makes her even more worried, and she wonders what she could have done. Despite her anxiety, she goes to meet him at the lab. Renchu apologizes and admits that he accidentally mixed a high-alcohol drink into the ice cream she ate. She then asks what happened last night, and he explains that she mistook his white shirt for her lab coat and tore it off. In the next scene, Renchu asks a favor from his fellow seniors. Shortly after, 6 of them show up. They explain that their college will be hosting a scientific competition next week. However, they have no fashion sense and always wear the same plain t-shirts. So they ask Won to help in dressing them. Our heroine happily agrees, and the seniors provide her with their sizes and the money for the purchase. In the next scene, Won and Renchu head to the mall to buy clothes for the seniors. She still feels embarrassed about the previous night's events, so she intentionally orders an extra shirt in Renchu's size. She then claims it's a mistake and gives him the shirt as a gift. Renchu doesn't dwell on it and graciously accepts the shirt. While exploring the mall, they come across an ad for a baking competition. Renchu suggests that Won take part in it because she's a skilled baker. At first she hesitates, but when he insists, she signs up for the competition. Upon returning to the university, Won tries to bake a dessert, but then she starts to lack confidence and assumes she'll fail. She then goes to Renchu at the swimming pool and informs him that she will withdraw from the competition. She then hands him the dessert she just failed to make, lamenting that she can't perform well under pressure. In response, Renchu tells her a story from his childhood when he almost drowned in a pool. After that, he was scared of the water, but he eventually got over it and started swimming. He suggests that she's capable of doing anything she wants, and she simply lacks confidence. Hearing these words of encouragement, Won decides to give it a shot. On the day of the competition, the two encounter a traffic jam, which makes them both late for the restaurant. Despite the setback, they refuse to give up, and Won immediately starts baking a dessert with his help. In the end, she manages to create a delicious cake. However, the victory goes to someone else, leaving Won disappointed and insecure. However, Renchu comforts her and praises her for pushing her limits. When Won returns to the university, she discovers a package waiting for her, which turns out to be an oven. Confused, she calls Renchu, who explains that it's her reward for participating in the competition. She says she didn't win, but he replies it doesn't matter because she gave her best effort. He then reveals that he used his scholarship money to purchase the gift. Won is deeply touched by his gesture and recalls Chow's words about Renchu possibly having feelings for her. She then realizes that she's also beginning to have feelings for him. A few days later, the clinical department announces an assignment in which Won and Chow are teamed up together. Their assignment is to develop a presentation with a novel medical concept. However, the girls are having trouble making the animation portion of the presentation. Chow suggests asking Renchu for help, but Won adamantly opposes the idea. Despite this, Chow texts him, and he immediately agrees to help. Afterward, the 3 of them sit down together and Renchu assists with the animation. During this time, Won continues to feel nervous, though she doesn't understand why. Chow catches onto it, and afterwards she tells Won that she might be in love with Renchu. She then advises her to check if her heart rate increases around him. Later, our heroine meets with Renchu and brings a stethoscope to check her heartbeat when she's near him. She asks him to shake her hand and listens to her heartbeat. As their hands draw closer, Won already feels her heart racing. This freaks her out, so she withdraws her hand before they can shake. Turns out she fears falling in love again because she doesn't want to get hurt like she did with Jianshan. Meanwhile, Guan notices Won and Renchu together and becomes jealous. She later approaches Won and asks what they were doing together, and the latter explains that they were just working on a project. Guan expresses her desire to join the baking club and learn how to make pastries. Our heroine thinks this is great, so she takes her in. Later, while baking together, Guan casually mentions that she has a crush on Renchu. This obviously upsets Won, but she doesn't say anything at the moment. Next, it's the day of the presentation, but Chow suddenly falls sick. This means Won has to do the presentation alone, and she becomes extremely nervous. As she begins her speech, she starts to stutter, and some of the other students start to make fun of her. Just when it seems that she's about to give up, she receives a text from Renchu, who gives her some confidence. She then spots him among the crowd and is relieved. With his support, Won gathers her courage and confidently presents her work. After the event, Juan meets with Renchu and expresses her gratitude for his encouraging text. However, he becomes upset and accuses her of giving his number to Guan. She doesn't deny it and instead mentions that Guan is a beautiful girl and suggests he should consider dating her. Unfortunately, this pisses Renchu off, and he storms off. A while later, Juan finds Guan crying in the hallway and asks what happened. The latter tearfully reveals that Renchu blocked her phone number and wonders why he's being so cruel. She then asks Juan if she has feelings for Renchu, catching her off guard. Not wanting to find herself in an embarrassing situation, our heroine bluntly replies that she doesn't. She claims that they're just good friends and nothing more. Unfortunately, Renchu appears in the hallway and overhears the entire conversation, making him distraught. Over the next few days, our protagonists continue to avoid each other as they prepare for their final exams. Despite his disappointment, Renchu finally decides to return with a more charismatic attitude to win over his crush. One evening, he finds Juan studying diligently at the library. He offers her a soy milk and takes a seat beside her. The two then continue to study, and Renchu helps her with her problems. A little while later, she takes a break and heads to the bathroom, and upon her return, she finds Guan in her seat, asking Renchu for advice regarding her studies. Juan then realizes that the college king and queen would make an ideal match, so she decides to leave them alone. Meanwhile, Renchu is annoyed by Guan's presence and tells her not to bother him. Days later, the final exams are over and Juan feels completely relaxed. The presentation results are out, and she finds out that she's gotten a good score. Renchu then visits Juan and asks if she feels jealous seeing him with another girl. Our girl nervously responds that she doesn't because she only sees him as a tutor. She then invites him to a farewell party that evening, explaining that she's changing her major for the upcoming semester. Renchu is outraged by her decision and refuses to attend the party, but in the evening, he changes his mind and decides to visit her. On the way, he crosses paths with Guan, and she insists on going with him, and they arrive at the venue together. Due to the awkward atmosphere, the other friends depart early, leaving only Renchu, Guan, and Juan. The three then attend a concert together, during which the electricity suddenly goes out. This causes Juan to panic, so Renchu holds her and assures her that he's there for her. After this, the two bail, leaving Guan alone inside. Juan's feet are aching from her high heels, so Renchu treats her wounds and buys her comfortable slippers. He then advises her not to do anything foolish in the future, like trying to set him up with other girls. He also disagrees with her decision to change her major and urges her to reconsider. However, she explains that the only reason she studied medicine was to be with Jiaoshan and is afraid of failing. This angers our hero and he ends up arguing with her, but in the end, he claims that it's none of his business and departs. When Juan returns home, she meets Chao, who's very emotional about her friend quitting medicine. Chao then leads her to a classroom where she shows her a video of the two of them wearing white coats for the first time. In the video, Juan vows that although she came to medicine by chance, she will not give up easily. Chao then says that while she respects her decision, she asks her not to give up because of temporary difficulties. Hearing this, Juan becomes very emotional and begins to cry. She finally changes her mind and declares that she will overcome her insecurities and become a great doctor. Days later, she sets up a pastry stand at the university's fair, and Renchu soon arrives and apologizes for their previous argument. Juan responds by giving him a mango cake and apologizes as well. She also thanks him for tutoring her and says that her final exam went well because of him. She then tells him that she's decided not to change departments and will continue studying medicine. Renchu is pleased with her decision and says she made the right choice. He then gives her a small turtle as a gift before walking away. A while later, Renchu notices Jiaoshan holding the little turtle, which makes him very angry. He attempts to go there, but is stopped by Yu Yang, who ties his hands with a leash. Renchu is then forced to participate in a variety of activities and games with Yu Yang. After a while, he eventually breaks free and rushes to Juan's stall. He then notices that she's prepared a heart-shaped cake for Jiaoshan, which makes him very jealous, so he ends up destroying the cake. The two men then start to argue again, but Juan somehow manages to calm the situation. She then reveals that the cake was actually for Yumi's birthday. Hearing this, Renchu is relieved as he realizes that Jiaoshan just wanted a cake for his girlfriend. Shortly after, it starts raining, and our protagonists run back to the university together. Juan then gives Renchu a paper towel and asks him to dry himself so he doesn't get sick. Our hero then questions why she cares about him when she doesn't love him. Juan claims that she doesn't like him, but these are just basic manners. In response, Renchu says that he didn't like the medical career in the first place, but ended up becoming fond of it. Next, as winter vacation approaches, the students prepare to return home to celebrate the new year. Renchu invites Juan to meet, claiming he wants to say goodbye to the turtle. During their meeting, she discovers that his family doesn't celebrate New Year's, and it's just another day for him. Renchu explains that he's not going home, and she feels bad for him. In the next scene, Juan returns home to spend the vacation with her parents. Mom asks about her handsome friend, and she explains that he's at university and hasn't gone home. Hearing this, Mom feels sorry for him and asks her to invite him to celebrate the new year with them. Juan is hesitant at first, but after some convincing, she agrees to ask him. Afterward, our heroine heads to the university feeling nervous about facing Renchu. She finally meets him and invites him to her home to celebrate the new year. She fully expects him to reject her, but to her surprise, he's delighted and accepts her invitation. On New Year's Eve, Renchu arrives at Juan's house and impresses her family with his chivalry. Mom even gives him a cute sweater that she sewed for the family members. Though Juan and her father are embarrassed to wear it, Renchu is very excited. The family then takes a group photo while wearing the matching sweaters. Afterward, Renchu helps the family making dumplings, during which Mom asks him what kind of girl he likes. He responds that he likes girls who are witty and clever, which makes Dad think he's describing his daughter. After dinner, they all sit down and play cards together. Renchu easily wins several games because he can count cards, but in the last game, he deliberately lets Juan win to make her happy. At midnight, the new year finally arrives and the family celebrates with excitement. Soon it begins to snow, so Juan runs outside in excitement. Renchu follows her and covers her with a scarf so she won't get cold. The two then light some fireworks and share a moment. Later, they stand on the balcony admiring the lovely atmosphere. Juan notices that Renchu is also cold, so she shares her scarf with him, and they become very close. Renchu visits Juan's house again a few days later, bearing New Year's gifts for her and her family. They're delighted by his thoughtful gesture and thank him. Among the gifts is a stethoscope, and Juan decides to use it to measure her heart rate. Renchu gets closer to her, and during this time, she realizes that her heart is beating too fast. She can't deny herself anymore and admits to herself that she has feelings for him. Afterward, Renchu bids farewell to Juan and proceeds to return to the university. At that moment, our girl gathers her courage and suddenly asks if he would like to be her boyfriend. Hearing this, Renchu is shocked and happy, but Juan quickly clarifies that she only wants him to be her pretend boyfriend and accompany her to the high school reunion. She says that Josh and Ayumi will be there and she doesn't want to feel miserable. Renchu is disappointed to hear this, but he agrees to be her fake boyfriend. The next day, they attend the high school reunion together, surprising everyone. During the meal, Renchu deliberately feeds Juan and takes care of her in every possible way. His attentive behavior makes everyone else there envious, and even Juan is amazed by his actions. After the meal, the two proceed home and their one-day couple experience comes to an end. Juan is disappointed because she really enjoyed pretending to be his girlfriend. She then realizes that she's forgotten her house key and her parents aren't home, and it's already late and the university is closed. Renchu suggests going to a hotel, but Juan thinks it's too expensive, so she makes a quick decision to take him to a cyber cafe for the night. There he takes out an English book and begins to tutor her, but she eventually falls asleep on the desk. Renchu then covers her with his jacket and takes care of her throughout the night. Over the next few days, they both want to ask each other out on a date, but neither of them knows how to initiate it. One morning, Juan finally gathers some courage and mentions feeling lonely because all of her friends have boyfriends to hang out with. Renchu seizes the opportunity and suggests that she hang out with him instead. This makes her very happy, and they make plans for their meetup. In the following scene, Juan arrives at the aquarium excited about their date, but she is instantly disappointed when Renchu arrives with Yuyong. She assumes he doesn't like her, which is why he brought someone else. She then begins to behave coldly towards him, but Renchu explains that he accidentally met Yuyong, who insisted on coming along. This makes our girl somewhat relieved. Shortly after, their moment is interrupted by Yuyong, who claims to have 3 tickets to the dolphin show. However, when they arrive at the venue, the receptionist informs them that their tickets have already expired. While Yuyong is arguing with the receptionist, Juan and Renchu use the opportunity to flee while holding hands. The two then spend the day together, having fun and making wonderful memories. Days later, the holidays are over and the students return to the university. They're informed that they must select a representative from their class for a debate with other departments. Fan Yi, who is a member of the organizing team, tries to persuade Renchu to participate, but he continues to decline because he believes it's a waste of time. Meanwhile, Juan is chosen to represent her class because her classmates don't want to take on such responsibilities. Later, she makes a special heart-shaped cake for Renchu and brings it to the lab for him. There, she meets Fan Yi, who asks her if she wants to participate in the debate competition. Juan says yes, and hearing this, Renchu also decides to join in and form a team with her. Fanyi is so overjoyed that he takes the cake from Juan to eat for himself. This disappoints our girl, but she gives Renchu another dessert and the two of them begin eating together. In the afternoon, Guan approaches Juan and asks her to find out about Renchu's preferences now that he's her debate partner. However, this time, our girl doesn't hold back and admits that she's in love with him. She says she can no longer help Guan win him over and proposes that they compete fairly to pursue him. On the day of the debate, the topic turns out to be whether it's possible to fall in love with artificial intelligence. Renchu handles it perfectly due to his knowledge of technology. However, Juan also impresses everyone with her arguments. During the debate, a student asks Renchu how he knows so much about love and if he has dated someone. In response, our hero announces that he is in love with someone and that person is present in the room. Following this announcement, the school's website and forums explode with speculation about Renchu's crush. Most people believe it's Guan, which irritates Juan. She then decides to take the initiative and confess her feelings for him. On the other hand, Renchu feels that he's missed too many opportunities and begins to plan to confess his love for her. In the afternoon, Juan goes to the mall for a makeover in preparation for her big confession. At the same time, Yumi and Jiashin are arguing because she's leaving the country for further studies. During their argument, Yumi reveals that she feels guilty because Juan has liked her for 5 years, and she feels like she's stolen him away. Jiashin claims it's not true and tries to comfort her, but she asks him to leave her alone. While leaving, Jiashin accidentally stumbles across Juan in the mall. He then takes the opportunity to ask her if she likes him. She admits she used to have a crush on him years ago, but now it's a thing of the past. She admits that she likes someone else now and wants to cherish him. Juan then proceeds to leave but accidentally trips and is about to fall when Jiashin catches her. However, at this moment, Yumi shows up and misunderstands the situation and begins scolding the two of them. After throwing a cake in Juan's face, Yumi angrily storms off the scene, prompting Jiashin to go after her. In the evening, Renchu sets up a romantic situation to confess his love for Juan. However, she doesn't show up because she's looking for Yumi, who has suddenly gone missing. She later calls Renchu explaining her situation and also shares her location. After a frantic search, she finally locates Yumi on a bridge where she is drunk and depressed. Juan clarifies that she wants nothing to do with Jiashin and that it was just a misunderstanding. However, the enraged Yumi begins to call her a coward, claiming that she liked Jiashin for many years but didn't dare to confess. She's also in love with Renchu, but isn't confessing to him either. After all this bullshit, Juan somehow manages to calm Yumi down and the girls proceed to head home. On their way home, they encounter some thugs who begin to harass them. Suddenly, Renchu appears and engages in a fight with the thugs. While he's delivering a flying kick, Juan can no longer hold back her feelings and screams out that she likes him. After dealing with the thugs, she anxiously approaches Renchu to check if he's okay. At the same moment, Jiashin also arrives and asks if she's injured. However, Renchu tells him to worry about his own girlfriend and takes Juan away. On the way, he angrily accuses her of being a fool who doesn't know how to protect herself and always thinks about others. He then buys her some medicine and treats her injured arm. During this time, Juan grows anxious, uncertain if he heard her confession or if he even really likes her. So she gathers her courage and asks him directly if he heard her confession and how he feels about her. Renchu is stunned by the question and doesn't want to answer her immediately. Instead, he invites her to tomorrow's swim meet and claims he will answer her there. The following day, Juan goes to the competition and is very excited, and Juan notices that other girls are jumping and cheering for him. She feels jealous, so she also begins cheering for him. After the event, she goes to the locker room to congratulate him and hear his answer. Unfortunately, she notices him with Guan, who is holding flowers and thanking him for them. Moments later, Renchu takes the flowers from her and clarifies that they're not for her. He openly admits his love for Juan and proceeds to leave. Just then, Juan returns and confronts him, asking why he rejected her feelings. She claims that her confession to him was sincere, so she hopes that his reason for rejecting her is equally sincere. Renchu simply smiles and tells her that she's very cute like this. He then hands her the flowers and asks her to officially be his girlfriend. Hearing this, our girl is overjoyed, and she instantly agrees to be his girlfriend. In the next scene, an excited Juan exits the locker room, but she ends up tripping and falling down the stairs. When Renchu receives the news, he rushes to the hospital to check on her. But upon his arrival, he discovers that the injured person is actually Yu Yang. It's revealed that he attempted to save Juan, but ended up injuring himself in the process. In the evening, Juan and Renchu return to the university holding hands. Our heroine can't believe that she's finally in a relationship and asks if she's just dreaming. Renchu then smiles and reassures her multiple times that this is actually real. The next day, they go on a double date with Chao and Fanyi, who have recently started dating. During their meal, Juan notices how her friend receives affectionate gestures from her boyfriend. She asks Renchu to do the same, but he doesn't understand. The girls then order salads to maintain their image in front of their boyfriends. However, Renchu is aware of Juan's appetite and orders a large number of dishes for her. After the meal, they head to a karaoke room where Juan and Renchu start singing a funny song. This bothers Chao and Fanyi, who suggests they sing something more romantic. They then begin playing a truth-telling game, during which Chao and Fanyi learn about each other's pasts. However, it turns out to be boring for Juan and Renchu, as they already know everything about each other. Our heroine then remarks that they feel like an old and boring couple, with nothing new to learn about each other. The next day, she invites Renchu to her home as her parents are not present. While cooking, she accidentally burns her hand, so Renchu tenderly hugs her. He then takes care of her wound and tells her that he will do the cooking from now on. Juan is moved by this gesture, and her heart almost bursts with happiness. Shortly after, her parents unexpectedly show up at the house, and they all sit down for a meal. Mom then asks Renchu if he has a girlfriend and if he's planning to introduce her to them. Hearing this, our girl directly gets up and announces that she's his girlfriend, which shocks her parents. Following the meal, Mom advises her daughter to get along with her boyfriend and to communicate effectively when problems arise. Meanwhile, Dad speaks with Renchu and asks that he take good care of his daughter. Annoyed by her parents' interference, Juan takes Renchu to her room for some privacy. There, he gives her a notebook as a gift. When she opens it, she discovers that he's written "I love you" on each page in various languages. Incredibly moved, she realizes that he can also be quite romantic. They then get closer to each other and finally share a passionate kiss. Over the next few days, our couple is swept up in a sweet romance. Every day at noon, Renchu waits for Juan outside her class before heading to the cafeteria for lunch. One morning during their meal, they discuss going on a date outside the university. They realize that due to their hectic schedules and studies, they've not yet had a formal date. Juan then suggests arranging the date herself because Renchu has already done so much for her. After returning to her dorm, she meticulously plans out the date. The next day, they meet up and head out to watch a romantic movie for couples. However, Juan becomes so bored with the film that she falls asleep. Renchu also complains that the plot has too many logical flaws. Following the movie's disappointment, Juan takes Renchu to an escape room designed for highly intelligent players. However, this also turns out to be a failure as he effortlessly solves the game within 10 minutes with his intelligence. Our girl is frustrated because she spent a lot of time and money to enjoy the thrill of the game, but it ended so quickly. When Renchu realizes her efforts to create a perfect date, he points out that he's already in love with her and that they don't have to follow typical social standards. He suggests that they do something that she likes. Hearing this, Juan is happy and she takes him to a DIY wood carving workshop where they make crafts together. Although she's good at it, Renchu turns out to be horrible, so she takes the time to teach him. After their amazing date, they return to the university and Juan uploads a selfie on her social media. However, she only receives negative comments from jealous girls who can't believe that she's dating him. They accuse her of photoshopping the picture, which ruins her mood. Seeing her so sad, Renchu declares his love for her in front of many students and kisses her on the forehead. Everyone is shocked to see this, and the negative gossip is finally put to an end. The following morning, Renchu brings a cake he baked for his girlfriend. After tasting it, she says it's not good, but she appreciates his gesture. He then informs her that his computer club has organized an upcoming exchange event. The problem is that it will take place in another city and he will be away for a month. Hearing this, Juan is a bit upset, but she supports her boyfriend. She then gives him some conditions, such as they should video call every day. Her WeChat should be pinned to the top, and he's not allowed to add any other girls. Renchu writes all these conditions on paper and drafts a contract. But instead of signing it, he directly kisses her on the lips to bind the contract. Days later, Juan arrives at the airport to see her boyfriend off. She gives him a box of 30 chocolates so he can eat one each day. The two are reluctant to leave each other and tearfully say their goodbyes. After returning to the university, she receives the unfortunate news that her baking club will be dissolved due to lack of members. Fanyi advises her to talk to Renchu about how she can keep the baking club. However, Juan feels it's her responsibility to find a solution on her own. In the evening, she has a video call with Renchu where she pretends to be calm. He can tell she's upset just by looking at her face. However, he doesn't want to interfere with her life, so he sends her an AI app to chat with her as a companion. Later, Juan interacts with the AI, who is both amusing and charming. She tells the AI how much she misses her boyfriend and receives a lot of Renchu's photos. This makes her very happy and brightens her mood. Days later, Renchu receives some packages from Juan. When he comes downstairs to pick them up, she appears behind him, taking him by surprise. He's delighted to see her, and the two of them embrace affectionately. In the evening, Renchu takes her to dinner with some of his fellow students. During this time, she finally reveals that her baking club is about to be dissolved. Renchu then suggests that she combine medicine and baking and start a nutrition club. This way she can call it a research department without having to stop baking desserts. Returning to the university, Juan changes the baking club into a nutrition club. Surprisingly, many students show up and join the club, which makes her very happy. The next day, she receives a bouquet of flowers from Renchu, making her extremely happy. The delivery person asks if she likes them, and it turns out to be Renchu himself. Juan is over the moon to see him, and he congratulates her on her new club. Afterward, Renchu's frat brothers also send her congratulations through WeChat. From one of the seniors, Juan finds out that the AI she has been talking to is Renchu himself, who stays up all night to talk to her. Taken aback, she playfully scolds her boyfriend for deceiving her. In the following days, the couple gradually adapts to their long-distance relationship. They continue to exchange romantic messages and talk about their days. As time passes, Renchu becomes more focused on his scientific research, while Juan becomes increasingly busy with her hospital internship. She's performing numerous nursing tasks under the supervision of doctors, which results in a heavy workload. This unfortunately leaves very little time for their relationship, but they do their best to make it work. One evening, Juan returns to her dorm very late and immediately passes the fuck out, preventing her from speaking to Renchu. The next morning, Chow wakes her up and tells her that she's late for her internship. Juan quickly gets ready and heads to the hospital. She answers Renchu's call during this time, but they only exchange a few words before she hangs up. Afterward, Juan arrives late at the hospital and receives a scolding from the doctor. Later, she's approached by a patient's mother who wants to inquire about her son's condition. However, since Juan is late this morning, she's unable to provide the update on the operation. This leads the woman to scold her and berate Juan until the doctor shows up. The doctor apologizes to the woman and provides an update on her son's condition. She then takes Juan to her office and scolds her for being unprofessional, claiming she's not yet qualified for the job. In the evening, Juan is feeling like a piece of shit when she receives a call from Renchu. He leads her to a small square where he has set up a romantic decoration with gifts. She gets excited thinking he's there, but finds out Renchu has arranged it remotely with the help of Fanyi and Chow. Moments later, Juan sees an ambulance rescuing patients. She realizes that while she misses her boyfriend, it should not interfere with her work. Therefore, she decides to balance love and work without restraint. She then makes a tough decision and tells Renchu that they should reduce communication and focus on their work. To her surprise, he takes it very well and points out that she's matured. A few days later, Renchu suddenly arrives at the university. He then gives her the last piece of chocolate she gave him, implying that he's not going back. She then shoves that chocolate in her face and kisses him. Since Juan's internship is over, Renchu decides to take her on a trip. The couple then head to the airport where they unexpectedly encounter Renchu's parents. He introduces Juan as his girlfriend, and she nervously greets them. The four then sit down for dinner, and Juan is so nervous that her legs shake the entire time. Renchu, on the other hand, begins discussing her positive qualities with his parents. Impressed by her, they eventually give the couple their blessings. Later on the plane ride home, Juan watches a horror movie and it terrorizes her. After they arrive at their destination, Renchu is worried that Juan will be scared and offers to stay in the same room with her. However, she doesn't want him to see her weak side and claims to be fine. Later, while sleeping alone, she begins to imagine ghosts in various corners of the room and becomes scared. In the end, she runs to Renchu's room out of fear and asks to stay with him. He then begins to tell her stories and holds her in his arms until she falls asleep. The next day, Renchu takes Juan on a museum tour where he surprises her with a romantic lighting and the view of the stars. At this moment, he expresses his deep love for her before suddenly telling her that he's leaving again for a year abroad. This means that they will have to start their long-distance relationship again. However, Juan is not surprised because his senior had already informed her about this. In all honesty, she reacts maturely, stating that their relationship will remain unchanged despite their distance. After returning to college, Ren-Chu enlists the help of his friends to organize a surprise birthday celebration for Juan. At the same time, she is also organizing a farewell party for him. Ren-Chu soon learns of this and asks Chow to spy on her to find out where the party will be held. Days later, it's Juan's birthday, and Chow takes her to an ancient temple to celebrate. However, she soon discovers that Ren-Chu and some of the friends have already arrived, surprising her. All of them are dressed in ancient costumes, and Ren-Chu has set up a mystery game in which they will simulate a wedding. Juan is overjoyed to see this, and she dresses up and joins in the game. Ren-Chu then gives her a script and instructs her to familiarize herself with the plot. In the script, the bride's phoenix crown vanishes on her wedding day. They want to find the crown and identify the person who did it. Juan is not in a hurry to find any clues, but instead starts flirting with Ren-Chu. He then begins to suspect that she has hidden the phoenix crown. He tries to tease his girlfriend back, but gets interrupted by Yu Yang. The latter tries to find some clues, but he soon becomes tired and falls asleep in the garden's sedan chair. The other friends mistake the person in the chair for Juan and carry him away. In the evening, the groom, played by Ren-Chu, walks into the wedding room and faces the covered bride. When he's about to marry the bride, he expresses his love for her and then takes off her veil. However, to his horror, he discovers that the bride is Yu Yang, leaving both men feeling deeply embarrassed. Shortly after, Ren-Chu discovers Juan outside, who is still on a secret mission to find the crown. The two return to the room, intending to continue the wedding scene from the script. Juan gets a little drunk after sharing a glass of wine and hugs Ren-Chu tightly. The couple then embrace each other and fall asleep together. When Juan wakes up the next morning, Ren-Chu wishes her a happy birthday and gives her a diamond engagement ring. She gladly accepts it, but their joy is short-lived when she suddenly becomes ill with appendicitis. Panicked, everyone immediately gathers and rushes her to the hospital. The scene then shifts to a month later when Juan has fully recovered. She meets Ren-Chu, and together they visit the aquarium where they had their first date, which Yu Yang interrupted. They have a chill and lovely time together, and Ren-Chu shows her the original document which states that they're not a couple. Now that they're finally together, they imprint their fingerprints and void the document. The two then begin kissing, but their romantic moment is cut short when Yu Yang once again appears out of nowhere.